XRP just entered the 1 month of the year that has historically been its strongest. Last July, XRP set its highest price in years, a run that carried it all the way up near $3.65. That was the peak of the entire cycle. And now, 12 months later, July is here again. But this time, XRP is not flying. It is sitting right on top of $1 in the middle of a year-long downtrend with the market stuck in deep fear. So the question almost every XRP holder is asking today is simple. Does history repeat, or is this July different? Here is what the seasonal pattern actually tells us, and, more importantly, what it does not. Because that is the real trap with seasonality. It is easy to look at a calendar, see that a month has been good before, and assume it will be good again. But markets do not work on a schedule. So the real question is not, was July good for XRP in the past? The real question is this. Does the setup going into this July actually support a move? Or is the pattern about to run into a very different reality? That is what we are going to break down today, calmly and honestly. No hype, no calendar magic, just what the data supports and what it doesn't. Quick note before we go further. Nothing in this video is financial advice. This is one read of the public record and how this market behaves. What you do with it is your decision, your timeline, and a conversation with a professional who knows your situation. This channel gives you the calm read. The rest is yours. Here is the plan. First, the seasonal pattern itself and the honest truth about what it can and cannot tell you. Then, how this July's setup compares to last year's, because the difference is bigger than most people think. Then what is quietly building underneath the price and the exact levels that matter. Then the 2 scenarios for the month ahead. And finally, what to actually watch in July. Let's get into it. This is XRP verified. Start with the pattern because it is real, and then I am going to be straight with you about it. Historically, July has been one of the friendlier months for XRP. Last year is the clearest example. July of 2025 is when XRP ran to its cycle high, near $3.65. For long-time holders, midsummer has often been where things got interesting. Now here is the part that matters, and it gets abused constantly in this space. A strong track record in 1 month is a pattern. It is not a law. Prices do not rise because a calendar page turns. They rise because of supply, demand, and news. So the fact that July has treated XRP well before is worth knowing, but it is context, not a promise. Anyone telling you XRP always pumps in July is selling you something. That matters. So we are going to use the pattern as a starting point and then do the real work. Look at what is actually different this time. Because the setup going into this July is nothing like the one from a year ago. So let's compare the 2 Julys directly, because this is where the story gets honest. Last July, XRP entered the month with the wind at its back. It was climbing, momentum was strong, and it was pushing toward the top of its range. This July looks nothing like that. Right now, XRP is not near its highs. It is sitting on $1, the most important support level it has. In fact, just days ago, on June 26th, XRP dropped to $1 and less than a cent above it, its closest brush with the $1 line since November of 2024. It held, but only barely. And the mood is completely different too. The crypto fear and greed index has now been stuck in extreme fear for more than 40 straight days. To put that in perspective, that is a longer stretch of fear than we saw during the Terra Luna collapse. This is not a market feeling confident. This is a market bracing. So understand the picture. Same month, very different starting point. Last July, XRP was flying into its strong season. This July, it is limping into it. And that difference is exactly why the seasonal pattern, on its own, is not enough to lean on. But here is where it gets interesting. Because underneath that weak-looking chart, something else has been happening, and it does not match the fear at all. This is the part the price is not showing you, and it is the strongest thing XRP has going into July. While retail has been fearful and the chart has been red, the biggest players have been doing the opposite. They have been buying. Look at the ETFs. Even as XRP fell toward $1, the US spot XRP funds kept pulling in money week after week, with cumulative inflows now past $1.5 billion since they launched. That demand is quietly tightening the amount of XRP available to buy. And it is not just the funds. On-chain data shows the largest wallets, the ones holding more than 1 million XRP, now control roughly 74% of the entire supply, after adding more than 1.5 billion XRP over the last 6 months. At the same time, the amount of XRP sitting on exchanges has fallen to multi-year lows. There is even a technical signal here. On the daily chart, a bullish divergence has held for about a week, which often points to selling pressure fading rather than a fresh leg down. So put it together, the price looks weak, but the accumulation underneath does not. Now, the levels that decide it. $1 is the line. As long as XRP holds it, the door stays open. Above, the level to reclaim is $1.13. That is the resistance that flipped against the bulls, and taking it back would be the first real sign the trend is turning. Below $1, the next support sits down around 87 to 90 cents. If you've been holding through this whole downtrend and you're watching that $1 line with me, comment "hold" below. I want to see how many of you are still paying attention at this level. So let's lay out both sides honestly. What does July actually look like from here? The bullish case. The seasonal tailwind lines up with what is building underneath. $1 holds. The accumulation keeps tightening supply, and a catalyst arrives to light the fuse. The Senate comes back and moves on the crypto bill. ETF inflows keep climbing, or RLUSD adoption picks up in Europe. If those pieces align, XRP reclaims $1.13, and for the first time in a year, the downtrend actually breaks. The bearish case. The macro pressure wins. Fear stays extreme, the broader market stays heavy, and the seasonal history simply does not matter because a pattern cannot fight a tape this week. $1 breaks, and XRP slides toward that 87 to 90 cent zone, with the summer strength never showing up. This does not guarantee anything in either direction. Both of these are live. But notice what the month really comes down to. It is not the calendar. It is whether that accumulation underneath finally meets a catalyst before the macro pressure forces the issue. So what do you actually watch this month? 4 things. First, the $1 line. This is the whole story in a single level. Hold it, and every bullish scenario stays alive. Lose it on heavy volume, and the picture changes fast. Second, $1.13. That is the resistance to reclaim. Until XRP takes that back, this is still a downtrend, no matter what the season says. Third, July 13th. That is when the Senate returns from its break and the crypto market structure bill is waiting. Any real movement there is the kind of catalyst that could wake this market up. And fourth, the fear itself. Watch the fear and greed index. 40+ days of extreme fear is historically the kind of stretch that sits near a turning point, not the start of one. If that number starts climbing, sentiment may finally be shifting. Keep those 4 in view. Together, they will tell you whether this July lives up to its history or breaks from it. So let's bring it all together. XRP just walked into the month that has historically been its strongest, but it walked in weak, sitting on $1 in a downtrend with the market deep in fear. So the seasonal pattern by itself is not something to lean on this time. What is worth leaning on is what is happening underneath. Quiet, steady accumulation into a thinning supply while everyone else is afraid. That is the real setup going into July. Not a calendar. A coiled spring that is still waiting for a reason to move. Whether it moves this month or not, the people who understand the difference between a pattern and a promise are the ones watching the right things, the levels, the catalysts, and the supply, instead of just the date on the screen. If this is the kind of breakdown that helps you think clearly instead of chasing hype, subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one as July plays out. No hype, no panic, just the structure, every single video. And if you want the full picture of why XRP is under this much pressure right now, watch the video on screen next. This is XRP verified. Stay patient, stay rational, and as always, we don't wait for the future, we plan for it.